The way I approach prepping now is very different from the way I started, as you'll see. Hi, this is Everyday Prepper and welcome to the channel. I wanted to discuss prepping, certainly in the UK, from a beginner's perspective, because the way I prep now is very, very different to how I started. When I first got started prepping, I looked at all the prepping channels and I looked it up online, and I thought prepping meant that you literally had to look like this. I wanted to portray what my mindset was when I first got started prepping. So I bought all the gear. I thought literally I've got to be some kind of Rambo style, full-on military dude who's got, you know, all the gear. When the actual reality is, I've never had any formal military training. I've never been put through what military personnel have to be put through as part of training. I'm reasonably physically fit. I practice martial arts, but let's be realistic. Prepping is not necessarily what you see on YouTube. So, especially if you go on the American channels. For one, we don't have weapons in the UK that are freely available. We don't have all sorts of land that we can just go out and live on or practice stuff on. You know, to be honest, if I needed to get away from my house for some reason and run off into the countryside, I'd probably end up in some hedge somewhere, which will be literally owned by someone else who's bugging in. So bugging out in the UK is probably really not a practical thing to do. I'm very fortunate. I've got a boat that's moored on a river not too far away from me, that's in a pretty secluded spot, and I've got some gear stashed on there as well. So that to me is a bit of a bug out location, but it's not ideal. Probably better than being in the woods. And I remember when I first really started stepping up my prepping, and it was around the time during all the lockdowns when, you know, I thought that we were going to be singled out as a family for not complying with certain measures, and I literally thought we were going to have to live in the woods somewhere or dig a hole. So I drew a 5-mile radius on a map from our area, and to find out places that we could maybe bug out to if we had to get away from our house. And half of that was in the sea, so that's no good. And the other half, there's no real major woodland or dense woodland or forest near us. So literally would have ended up being in a hedge in someone's garden, which, you know, it's just not ideal. So it's not practical at all. And luckily enough, we're now not in that situation at all. So I wanted to go through what prepping might mean for a beginner, and to just look back and look at what I would do now if I was starting out afresh. And the way I do it is simple. I have covered this before, but I'll cover a little bit more detail now. And that is look at your day-to-day living, your day-to-day life, a day in the life of you. As I say, I did cover this on one of my other videos, but I wanted to cover it in much more detail to really spell out how this works. So let's have a look at this. So my day looks like this. I wake up in the morning, I go downstairs, I get a cup of coffee. I then work myself up to some breakfast, go back up, have a shower, clean my teeth, use the loo, get ready for work. Then I'll go to work in my car, fill up with some fuel if I need to, if I couldn't be bothered the night before. And then during the day I'd get myself some lunch if I haven't made sandwiches myself. And then at the end of the day I'll come home, mess around on the PC, maybe record a video, maybe watch some TV, and then I'll go to bed. So let's go back over that in more detail this time. So when I wake up in the morning, sometimes it's naturally, sometimes I use an alarm. So what alarm do I use? Well, I use a mobile phone which is charged. I always make sure it's on charge during the night or it's charged up before I go to bed. Then when I get up, I go and have some coffee. Now, I use a filter coffee machine, which is powered by mains electricity, and the coffee we buy from our local supermarket. We don't use filters because they're all in the coffee. But we do filter our water that goes through the coffee machine. Then I have some breakfast. I usually have a cooked breakfast if it's not just a few eggs on toast, where we use homemade bread, and the eggs are provided by my chickens. Chickens are fed on general poultry layers feed, which I buy at the local pet shop, and I cook on a gas hob, which is on mains gas. So then I'll go to work. Then I'll get dressed, and clothes are washed in the washing machine that's on the mains. If it's nice weather, then they'll be dried on the line. During the winter, we use a tumble dryer. So then I'll go to work. If I need to top up with fuel, I go down to my local petrol station and I would get some fuel. I would go and obtain some lunch, probably from a local supermarket, carry on with my work day, and then I would go home. I then play around on my PC, which is on mains electricity. I don't use a laptop, although I do have one. Sometimes watch some TV, and again, that's used. We have a streaming service through a little dongle that's plugged in the back of the TV, so that's connected wirelessly to the internet. and the TV runs off the mains. And then I go to bed. So now let's look at it in the detail, considering what disruption there could potentially be. So my phone doesn't need the internet to work its alarm. So if the internet was to go down overnight, that's fine. If the power was to go down overnight, my phone should still be on, as long as it's charged up the night before, and the alarm should go off. So I shouldn't really have a problem there. If I was relying on a mains powered radio that didn't have a battery backup, then I might have a little bit of an issue and I might oversleep. Then I get up in the morning and put the coffee on. Now, if we haven't got mains electricity, I could put it on my solar, but the coffee machine has an element in it which heats up the water, and that element I think is about 1,000 watts. So it's pretty hefty draw, and I wouldn't really want to put that on my solar. So if we had no power, that's when the problems will start already. Literally, I haven't even got up yet. I'm trying to have my cup of coffee, and then we've got a problem. So that would mean I would have to perhaps use my mains gas to boil some water and make some coffee using instant coffee, which again I buy at the supermarket. Further potential disruptions, well, I can't get hold of coffee, so I always have some spare coffee in my stash. Pretty simple. I'm trying to keep things as simple as possible here. Next thing, I'll have some breakfast. It's cooked on mains gas, and I've got the chickens that lay the eggs. So as long as I've got chickens that are laying eggs, which they are regularly, then I've got eggs. So you shouldn't have a problem with that, unless something awful happens to the chickens, in which case I'd have to make other arrangements. Cooked on gas in the frying pan, and the toast is done in the toaster. So again, if I was without mains power, I'd have to probably grill my toast using the gas cooker. If I was without mains gas, I'd have even more of a problem. So that's why I've got gas backup, various gas stoves, various gas cylinders, all topped up with gas, so that I can weather a bit of an outage if that occurred. Next one is I get dressed. Well, I've got a drawer full of clothes, so if I couldn't wash clothes for a week because of power or water shortage or some problem like that, I wouldn't really have a problem. I've got plenty of clothes that I could use. I don't generally throw clothes away, or I'll reuse them, or I'll stitch them up if I have to. I'm not one of these people who has always got to have brand new clothes every day. But if it was disrupted for long term, then I have a desktop washing machine that's really good. It also does spin cycle, and that runs off my solar, and it's literally about 180 watts. So it hasn't got an element, so I'd have to have water heated somehow, either through boiling it on the gas or on a wood stove, through alternative means basically, and you pour warm water in there and you can wash your clothes, and it does just as good a job as a washing machine. So we've got that as a backup. So it's like a camping portable washing machine type thing. So this is all before I got out the door. These are potential disruptions that could happen to my day-to-day. So then I'm going to have a shower. My shower is run off of, so the water's heated through central heating run on gas. I've got a gravity-fed shower. I also boost that with a 12-volt pump that's run off of my solar. But that's a different story. Generally, it's gravity-fed, and so if I had no power, then my boiler wouldn't work because the pump is run off of mains electricity. So I'd have to have some other way of washing or heating water for washing. Oh, and just backtracking, having spare water for my coffee, for instance, and also washing, if just for some reason that my mains water was cut off, temporarily, I'd be able to manage for long enough, hopefully, until it was switched back on again. Right, so we've had the shower. We've got the, I'll clean the teeth. I use a rechargeable brush. It always recharges on my solar. And I've got plenty of toothpaste stored in my store in case there's a toothpaste shortage. You never know. So now we're ready to get out the door. Get in my car. I forgot to fill up last night, so I need to go down to the petrol station. Now, if the petrol station, there's only 3 in my town. If they were all out, then that everyone else has gone to all the ones in the other outer regions. So generally, I'll probably have to drive about 25 miles before I can get fuel. So luckily, I've got some spare fuel in my shed, which I circulate every few months. That would be one major disruption for me, to be honest, because I drive for a living. Then I'll go and get some lunch, and I'll pay usually with my debit card or my phone, actually. So now we've had a couple of outages just recently in the whole of our town and even nationwide where people have had to go cash only. And if I didn't have cash with me, which I always do in the back of my phone, just in case, a little bit, then I might have a problem paying for stuff. So that's all done, work day's done, I come home, have a play on my PC. Of course, if the power's off, then I might have to use a laptop. I would have to rig up my router to the solar power so that I've got, because I've got an inverter that gives me mains power, and then my router would then work, and then I'd have internet because I'm able to put power down the line and get an internet connection. So if worst came to worst, I'd have that. If not, I could do a Wi-Fi point. I could do a hotspot on my phone using 4G, and that's assuming that it's not a major power outage where all the mobile phone masts are down. And then I maybe watch a bit of TV. And I've done this. I've had the TV on the solar on my battery backup of an evening before when we were trying to save money with these peak save things for people with smart meters. So you can cut down your electricity and they pay you a certain amount if you don't use a certain amount. And I've done that before, just use my solar as backup, have the TV on, it doesn't really disrupt you at all. Then go to bed and then rinse and repeat. Now, so if you do that for your routine and you just work it through, what powers everything, how is everything powered that you need on a daily basis throughout your normal daily routine? Everyone's pretty much got a routine. And then what you can do is you can plug in different seasons. So, extremes. So you've got, the summer, if you want to keep cool. You've got extra water you're going to need, mainly winter. If your heating wasn't working, how are you going to heat the house? Are you able to heat one room? We've got a wood burner in one room, which does spread to some of the house, but it will keep that room cosy. So if we had to suffer if we had to endure a whole winter without heating, we'd be okay because we've got the wood burner, and that's pretty much it. I've got a small spaced heater as well. It's about 600 watts that I probably could run off the solar if I absolutely had to, but the wood burner would suffice. And we've got plenty of wood as backup, which we're always adding to just to make sure we've got extra to burn if need be. So it's not glamorous. It's just day-to-day living. Now I prep for day-to-day disruption. Now if you're prepared and you're prepped for all of those eventualities, something going wrong with each of those individual things, then you're prepped for a major catastrophe. Because if there was a grid down situation where there is no running water eventually, no power, maybe no gas coming into the house, and you've got spare gas, you've got a way of generating electricity, you've got food put away, you've got water put away, and you've got washing water put away, you've got a means to filter it or treat the water using purification tablets, you've got knowledge and skills of how to obtain water from the atmosphere, from the environment in as clean a way as possible. All of these things will be needed in a major catastrophe or long-term situation. So all of these skills and all of these preps that you're just doing for daily stuff is going to be useful. So, even having some DIY skills, most people I know are kind of old school. They know all the DIY tricks of the trade and are generally pretty hands-on and know how to fix most things. Not everyone does, and I get that. But, there's nothing wrong with picking up, perhaps a B&Q DIY book, or a Wix DIY book, and just go through it. You'll also get loads of ideas, you'll get loads of light bulb moments, and there's tons of stuff in there that I didn't know before when you just read through literally a DIY book, things of how to fix stuff. I completely changed our bathroom over, plumbed it all, and I learned really from DIY book and YouTube. Never done a plumbing course in my life, but now I'll tackle any plumbing issue in the house. Same with electricals. Certainly 12 volt, I'll have no problem with dabbling in all of that just because I've learned it and done it. So these are all things that you can bolt on as skills and preps to limit any kind of disruption to your day-to-day living. So the point I'm trying to get across really is prepping doesn't have to be all this, gung-ho, I'm prepping for this major event, or this disaster and this disaster, or prepping for war, or prepping for something specific. If you're prepping for all of these things that could disrupt your daily routine, and most people's daily routine will involve a lot of aspects of life, and if we had a major catastrophe, then a lot of those aspects of life would be disrupted. So it's just a case of just managing yourself and your family gradually, and increasing your preps and adding to your skills, as I say, to minimise any disruption on an individual basis. So the electric going off, the water going off, the gas going off. Then if all of that went off and you're prepped for each individual one, then you're going to be okay. I had thought, because the video is going to be slightly more lengthy than my usual short clips of late, it might be worth doing a live stream, because we've got some of some of you who are subscribed have a wealth of knowledge, and way more knowledge than I have, and way more experience in all of these things. And it might be worth getting a live stream going with, if we can get some people on and then certainly any new preppers or people starting out can perhaps ask some questions and get that wealth of experience. Perhaps I'll put a poll up on the community tab to see if anyone's up for that. But I think that might be a good idea. That way I can ramble on for an hour on a live stream, and we can get some more people involved, if you know what I mean. So if you are new to this channel as well, my name's Steve. I'm a prepper, or what I call a prepper in the UK. And, in this video, I've probably gone over a little bit of my story, but, I certainly come from a background where I was always into DIY. Didn't really know what prepping was, but when I did actually get started and I started looking it up, the urgency that I was getting from a lot of channels, certainly on YouTube, that I was looking at, were kind of telling me, I've got to prepare for absolute all-out nuclear war or something like that. And it scared the living daylights out of me, and just made me buy just about everything that was recommended without really sitting down and thinking, how is this going to affect me on an individual basis? So that's what I've done going forward. And over the years, I've gradually built up backups like solar power, like food storage, like water storage, that suit me. For everyone, it will be different, but there are some basics that will probably overlap everybody's preps. So if you find this video interesting, then please subscribe, because pretty much all of my videos are exactly about that. Trying to keep it simple, not panicking, just putting yourself in a nice secure situation where you know that you can handle pretty much certainly infrastructure issue, like water, electricity, gas, shopping, and then you can just scale it up from there. So as I said, I hope you found this interesting. Perhaps we'll do a live chat where we can discuss this in a bit more depth with some other people involved as well. In the meantime, I really appreciate you watching, and stay prepared.